Identified two personality prototypes, the extrovert and the introvert. The introvert bases his life entirely on the internal meanings he alone describes, while the extrovert's frame of reference belongs entirely to the world outside himself. Jung might be surprised to find his analytical model of personalities applied to the contemporary discourse on architecture. Let's identify the current internationalist paradigm as a global extrovert, and the insular, centuries in the making traditions of Japan as the indigenous introvert. So Jung's archetypal personality conflict could be imagined not as an exchange within a single individual, but as an intersection of two cultures. The architecture of Shigeru Bon, I think, belongs particularly to this tension between competing cultural prospects. Predictably, the exporting cultural extrovert subsumes the sometimes fragile antecedents that belong to the local introvert. But Shigeru Bon has a more resilient cultural history. Admiral Perry, the prototype Western extrovert, sailed into Tokyo Bay in the middle of the 19th century and precipitated a cultural schism that endures today. Can contemporary Japan promulgate what is uniquely and quintessentially Japanese, or should Japan remodel itself in accord with a Western dictionary definition of national priorities? For Shigeru Bon, neither option entirely solves the architect's problem. The Swiss Frenchman, Le Corbusier, a well-known extrovert, built a museum on a hill in Ueno Park looking over Tokyo. Miyakawa and Sakakura absorbed the French modernist precedent and passed that conceptual pro forma to Tange, Kurosawa, and Kikutake, who in turn handed it to Maki and Isusake, and on to Ito and Ando. Quite an astonishing lineage. Shigeru Bon observed all this, but refused to swear allegiance to the modernist ideogram. Bon is not the latest link in the Ueno Park lineage. His work suggests a more intricate and contradictory sensibility, one that might belong to the remarkable 7th century Taoist Ise shrine. At Ise, a building is constructed on one of two adjacent sites and stands for 20 years. The contiguous site remains empty. After 20 years, the building is demolished and an identical structure is built on the adjacent site, and it, in turn, stands for 20 years, and so on and so on. So the current structure at Ise is always both old and new, forever built, forever unbuilt, forever building, assembling and disassembling, enduring and ephemeral, temporary and permanent, specific and generic, tangible and abstract. Shigeru Bon is his own psychologist. As at Ise, Bon shape, Bon space, Bon material, Bon detail transform that dated extrovert-introvert dialectic and make Bon architecture a synthesis, neither the international nor the indigenous allegiance, but a transcendent poetic voice which simultaneously invokes both Jung's prototypes and belongs to neither. Please welcome psychologist Shigeru Bon to SCI-Arc.
Thank you very much. I'm terribly sorry I had to postpone my last lecture because I had terrible back, because I'm having really hard time in France working with French people. I'm so glad I came back to SCI-Arc after 28 years. I was here, not here, actually in Berkeley Street in Santa Monica. It's the first period of SCI-Arc. It was 1978. I spent here 2.5 years before I transferred to Cooper Union. But the SCI-Arc was really the beginning of my entire career, because I just finished high school in Japan and I came here to start studying architecture. So that my education, my architecture has a big influence from the education of SCI-Arc, including the Ray Cappi's architecture. I still remember I visited his house, and I have a strong architectural influence, and also that many strong influence from the so-called case study houses. All my Japanese influence is indirectly through the so-called case study houses in California. Today I'm showing my project from very beginning to the most recent one, which is the new Pompidou Center, including some of disaster relief project. I'm working in some disaster relief, disaster area. As you know, the history of architecture, architect has been working for privileged people. We used to work for the religious group, king, and even now we are working for privileged people, like government, big corporation, rich people. And however, end of 18th century, when the Industrial Revolution started, many people moved into the city. We had to build the social housing. That was the first time architect ever worked for general public. After Cold War finished in 1980s, there are so many disasters happening all over the world. Natural disaster, man-made disaster. I must say, natural disasters are no longer natural. I must say those are man-made disasters. For example, earthquake. Nobody are killed by earthquake itself. People are killed by collapse of the building. Even flooding. Flooding is becoming bigger and more often because of deforestations. We cut the trees for construction. Then I must say those disasters, earthquake and flooding, are really responsible for architect, because people are killed by collapse of the building and we cut trees for the construction. So we got to do something after disaster. And that's why I started doing working in disaster area. This is the exhibition. After I finished Cooper Union 1985, I went back to Tokyo immediately to start my own practice. And I started designing exhibition. This is one of the earliest exhibition I designed for my favorite architect, Alberto. Because I went to Finland many times to see his architecture, and I want to design something like Alberto's architecture for his exhibition. But I couldn't afford using timber, wood, as he did. So I was looking for some alternative material to replace wood. Then I found out paper chip, because paper chip was all over my studio after I finished tracing paper, fax paper, or toilet paper. Always it's remained, and I hate to throw them away. So I decided, I knew that it's very inexpensive because made of recycled paper, and I knew we can make any diameter, any length. Here I used the inch diameter tubes for the ceiling, like Alberto's B-Please library, and bigger diameter was used for the freestanding partition. That's the first time I ever used paper for the interior. Since then, I knew it's such a strong material. I started testing it to find out the compression, tension, tensile strengths to use for the building structural material. Next, please. This is also the area houses I designed. It's called furniture house. It's a prefabricating house system. When I experienced terrible earthquake, many people are killed by heavy furniture. Furniture fall down on the people they killed. Even some people save their life because they are in between heavy furniture, and when roof fall down on the people, they save their life because of this heavy furniture. So I knew furniture is strong enough to save people or even to kill people. So I thought, why don't you design the house itself just by furniture? So this is the prototype. This is a standard type of the furniture. It's a closet. It's 3 feet by 8 feet, and it's already insulation is in, and it's painted outside inside. Next, please. And then furniture just these are where that's it. So we bring in the furnitures. It's quite lightweight. Then we just connect the furniture with the foundation and also horizontally furniture and furniture. Next, please. In one day, all the structure cabinet are installed, and it's already painted inside outside. Next day, we just put the pre-cut beams to put the roof. If you want to make a second floor, you just have to repeat putting the furniture on top of this platform, so that we can build without any skilled labor. So we can save time and labor to build this furniture house. Next, please. So even this bookshelves, it's also the structure element for the vertical and also lateral force. Next, please. When I was asked to design the house near the Great Wall in China, I wanted to use some local material, and I found out timber is very expensive in China, but they make the plywood made of bamboo skin. So then I worked with local plywood company to make a laminated bamboo, and I brought back to Tokyo to test it, and it was so strong, it was something in between wood and the steel. This is the type of the furniture house, because it's very difficult to do the good site administration. It's so far away. That's why I decided to use furniture house idea, because it's easy to control the quality. Next, please. So this is all made of furniture, made of the laminated bamboo for the framing and columns, and even the beams. Everything is made in bamboo. And this is typical center courtyard type of the house. Next, please. Then this idea of using storage unit, using storage unit as a structure, goes to this project. It's called Nomadic Museum. This was built in New York last March for 3 months temporary. And this time I used a shipping container as a structure for the bearing wall. This exhibition is, this is the museum for the photographer, Gregory Colbert. And it's interesting, here he asked me to design the temporary, the museum which travel all over the world. The first place was on top of the Pier 54 in New York. And so the 4 layer of the container, which create checkerboard pattern, became the bearing wall. I made a checkerboard pattern in order to minimize number of container, also minimize the weight of the structure, because this is sitting on the 100 years old wooden pier. Next, please. And the roof is supported by paper chip column and the paper chip triangle. Next, please. This is inside. That's just like a furniture structure. This container is used as a bearing wall. And now this museum is coming to Santa Monica from next January. And now it's under construction. I'm working with the local firm, Gensler. And it's coming very well. And so please come over to Santa Monica Pier next January. Next, please. This is one of the latest projects in France. I spent 6 years for this small project. This is the small museum for the history of the canal. This is the canal. It's a very old canal. And this is the structure to exhibit old boat. It's a paper tube structure. And also this is a small museum introducing the history of the canal. Next, please. This is the first permanent paper tube architecture in Europe after the temporary pavilion for Hanover Expo. And this is, I have to show you detail. Next, please. This is interesting aluminum die-cast joint. Because this was first paper tube permanent structure in France, I was asked by proof engineer to design the joint in order to replace the paper tube in case if it's damaged. In order to change this, when we have to change, but it's actually the paper tube lasts almost forever. But we have to unscrew this unscrew. Then this wood piece goes inside of the tube to take this paper tube out. Then we put a new tube, and this wooden piece goes back, and we screw to connect it. So this is very simple joint in order to replace the tubes just in case it's damaged. Next, please. And I want to show you as a continuous development of the furniture structure. And this one, I have very small budget, so I asked the client to design the exhibition itself to use the exhibition as a part of a structure. Next, please. I just used the L-shaped angle with hole. This is kind of the storage, self-built storage unit you can buy do-it-yourself store to make your own bookshelf with L-shaped angle. I just designed the exhibition itself with this L-shaped angle, and also this exhibition itself is holding the roof. So exhibition becomes the part of the structure, and also there's a low voltage it's here, so that I can clip in the light fixture to this structure itself. So this has three meanings. It's the exhibition and the structure and also the lighting fixture itself. Next, please. Right-hand side is my very old house called Curtain Wall House, built 1984. Left-hand side is one of my favorite houses designed by Miss van der Rohe, Farnsworth House. This Farnsworth House is a revolutionary house in Western history of architecture because architecture totally become transparent. But I must say, this is visually transparent, but not physically. If you take a look at traditional Japanese house, when we open up all the sliding doors, the house becomes totally transparent, visually, even physically, because inside and outside connected. But as you know, that there is only one door connected with the outside, so that it's visually transparent, but physically it's not really as transparent as Japanese architecture. So that is a innovation. When I visited my client house, they are living in the same site in a traditional small Japanese house, enjoying openness and flexibility of the house. So I decided to carry on their lifestyle into the new structure. It's just simply steel structure with the glass sliding door to divide inside with the terrace, and the final skin is made of curtain. Next, please. So in order to the curtain is used as the shading device, also that is keep privacy. And when the curtains blow away, I can expand the limit of the site to the street. And as you know, Mies van der Rohe is the architect who invented so-called curtain wall. Curtain wall is the glass and the metal window. Instead of using a Miesian curtain wall, I just use a curtain as a curtain wall house. Next, please. This is a house called 2/5 house. The name came from geometry because the two of 5 rectangular space are only used as an indoor space. This is the front courtyard outside. This is the living room inside. The middle courtyard outside, and indoor again, and outdoor again. Wherever there's a dot line, these are glass sliding door, which goes outside of the wall to open from wall to wall in order to connect inside and outside. Next, please. This left-hand side photo is taken from the front courtyard to see through to the back courtyard. So all the floors are connected I call this universal space instead of universal floor instead of universal space. All the floor is connected, and we can divide the rooms depending the time of depending occasion and the season. I put the second floor just like a Mesian glass house in order to compare the Mesian transparency and also the Japanese type of transparency underneath. Next, please. This is a house called Picture Window House. This was built on the hill looking at the ocean view. I want to make the picture window by the structure of the building itself. Usually picture window is small square window on the wall to frame beautiful landscape as like the painting. Instead of making square window, I just made the whole second floor as the frame to cut the ocean view. Next, please. So this is a horizontal window as a picture window to cut the ocean, beautiful ocean view. Next, please. Right-hand side, it's a house I call wall-less house without wall, built on the hill. This is just a small weekend house. And the left-hand side is another favorite of Ms. van der Rohe, the Barcelona Pavilion. After this Barcelona Pavilion was rebuilt, I've been there a couple of times. It's really amazing architecture. But it's quite ambiguous structurally because always columns are standing so close to the wall. Then I wonder whether this column is really structural or not, because this wall could be structure. Then I calculated the structure just with columns, without any walls. Then I knew there's enough columns to support the roof. But also I calculated just walls without any columns, and also there's enough walls area to support the roof. So the meaning of the column and the wall is quite ambiguous here. My wall-less house, I try to clarify or to simplify the meaning of each fundamental architectural element, like a columns, wall, and roof, so on. Next, please. As I said, this was built on the hill. Instead of making that kind of floating platform, because I didn't have the budget, what I did is just digging the half of the ground to put this soil up here to make a small platform. However, the hill still continued this way. That's why this has to be usually the strong concrete retaining wall as cantilever to support the pressure of the earth. But instead of making cantilever concrete wall, I just made this concrete floor curved like this. So this is upside down of arch. So the pressure of the earth is naturally transferred to the floor. So this doesn't need to be strong cantilever wall. This is just a part of the floor. So this is not wall, this is a part of the floor. And besides that, there's only 3 thin columns. Each one is only 2-inch diameter. And especially in Japan, where we have strong earthquake, it's impossible to have such a small column. So obviously, this is only supporting the vertical force, not horizontal lateral force. I made the roof as the diaphragm, so that all the lateral force is transferred to the edge of this floor, so that none of the lateral force come to the top of the column, so that it's only supporting the vertical force. This is just one space with a kitchen and open bathroom, but you can close when somebody comes, you can close the bathroom. Or also, this is a movable closet. You can move to divide the bedroom into 2 just in case somebody wants to stay over. Next, please. This is a 9-square grid house. This is structural containers in order to make 1 square space, which can be divided into the small 9-square using sliding door. Also, depending on the occasion, you can divide into the linear space or the middle size of the square, whatever you want. There's only 2 spaces as name. It's the bathroom and the kitchen. But there is no place called the living room or bedroom. And depending on season, for example, in the winter, you can put your bed south side of the house, it's warmer. And in the summer, you can put your bed northern side of the house, it's cooler. In case you fight with your wife, you can separate 2 bedrooms. Next, please. This photo it's showing just one square space, all the storage and the mechanical space and the air conditioning, everything in the structural cabinet. Also, you can divide bedroom and bathroom depending on the occasion. Next, please. This is the first phase of the museum project called Paper Art Museum. I was asked to renovate all the factory into the gallery with very small budget. What I did is just a simple thing. I just removed all the existing wall, exposing the steel columns, and I put the standard garage door, fiberglass overhanging door. Usually, overhanging door, when it's open, it comes inside of the space. I just put the other way around. So when it's open, this goes outside in order to create nice canopy, in order to connect the inside and outside. So just standard the garage door, put the other way around. Next, please. Then the next phase was a new building. And this looks like one building, but actually structure, this is a totally separate building. Northern side, a 3-story of the gallery, and the southern side as administration. It's just two building structure is connected with the bridge and the membrane and the fiberglass shutter. This is standard the glass, double glazed fiberglass shutter. When museum is open, it goes up and the museum is open. Next, please. And the south side, it's open to create a canopy. Next, please. And the inside, you can open the shutter, and even you can open the sliding door to connect the south side and the northern side to create the bigger space depending on type of exhibition or the lecture, whatever, depending on occasion. Next, please. This is a small restaurant in Tokyo, and two facades of the restaurant is made of the glass shutter. It's a standard shutter. When the gallery, the restaurant is closed, it's totally closed. When restaurant is open, this glass shutter go up. Next, please. Then it's in the fine days, totally the glass shutter goes up on both sides. Totally the two facade is open to connect the inside and outside space. Next, please. This is another shutter house for the photographer. And this was very narrow, small site, nothing to see outside. So I made a small courtyard in many places. And so small the courtyard is in between the living and dining, so on. And this is separated with glass shutter. Next, please. When in fine days, this glass shutter totally open to connect to the living room with the dining space, with the courtyard in front and the right side, so that all the floor are totally connected when it's good day with all the shutter goes up. Next, please. This is another small office building for the showroom for the dentist, dental equipment. And the client asked me to have some idea because there is a dental college in front of this office. They wanted to invite the doctor and the student to their showroom. So I designed all the facade made of glass shutter. Next, please. And shutter totally open. Then there's a cafe and overlooking their showroom, so that their student and the professor of dental college can come spend have a lunch free with the cafe, and they can see the dental equipment at the same time. Next, please. This is apartment. And the right-hand side is the existing site before the construction. There's many trees. I promised with my client I don't want to cut any trees. However, I wanted to have some structural grid in order to make structural steel construction economical. But any of the square or rectangular grid didn't fit into this the site without cutting trees or cutting the roots under the ground. So what I found out is the triangle grid. Triangle grid is very special. For example, if this is, let's say this is a square grid, there is only 4 beams is intersecting. At least you need 3 beams to support the column stiffening. However, it's a triangle grid. There is a 6 beam is intersecting. So you can avoid up to 3 beams, still you have 3 more to support the columns. So I have more freedom to decide where to where to have an opening to avoid the cutting trees and roots, so depending the position of the trees. Next, please. This photo, left-hand side, was taken in the winter. You can see the trees. But in the summer, the leaves cover the roof. So the leaves become shading for the roof, so it's very cool. And this is 3-story, the duplex apartment. And these people used to walk through the forest as a shortcut to the train station. So I designed the kind of the piloty in order to minimize the space on the ground, in order to let the neighbor of people to walk through underneath of the building to the train station in order to keep good relationship with the neighbor of people. Next, please. This is a house called Naked House. This was built middle of the rice field. The request of the client was very unique. They said that they want a house like a warehouse. And they also said that they don't need to have a very individual room with tight privacy, because they want to share time and space in their common space instead of being in the individual spaces. So I use the contextual material. There are many greenhouses, so I use the corrugated glass fiber, the sheet horizontally and vertically to reinforce each other, and also to keep air gap as an insulation. And also I created the insulation material using the kind of the foam core, the spaghetti shape of the foam core, which is usually used for the packing of the fruits, put in the plastic bag. And I put extra layer with bubble packing material. So there are many layers of translucent insulation material to make wall insulated. Insulated, but also the translucent. Next, please. So the wall is made of by fabric, so it's translucent. And the individual rooms are made as a movable box. And 2 sides of the box are made by a sliding door, which can be removed, and even 4 rooms can be connected in order to create linear tatami mat floor. This is perfect for the funeral occasion, and even you can remove. Next, please. Sorry, keep it. Also, that it's like the grandmother doesn't want to have air conditioning, but small children, they love to have air conditioning. And it's impossible to have the air conditioning inside of the movable box. So here is the air conditioning unit for the common space. When you want to have air conditioning, you just move your box attached to the wall. So this becomes your individual air conditioning unit. But also if you want to see outside, just you move this unit attaching to the window. So that is becoming your personal window. Next, please. And you can remove all the cabinet outside when you want to have a lecture, or the kids can study and play on top of their own boxes. Next, please. This is the 6-story office building in the middle of the big city like Osaka, and also it's required the fire protected building. Usually fire protected building, we have to use concrete or steel with fire protection. Then I thought, why not to use timber, wood as a fire protection, and also the final finish? Because the wood doesn't transfer the heat. First of all, we have to protect the steel from the melting. So I thought this can work. This is the testing. I tested this method to get the government permission. As I said, first of all, the timber doesn't transfer the heat. But when the heat become much higher, fire become much higher, temperature become higher, that obviously timber can be burned. Then timber would become charcoal. Charcoal is a perfect fire protection material. So that I proved this method by testing, and I found out 1 inch thickness of the timber, actually this is plywood, works as a half-hour fire protection. and the 2-inch box has 1 hour fire protection. So that this building is fire protected, steel construction, fire protected with plywood as a final finish. So you don't have to spray ugly fire protection. Next, please. And also then you have to cover by plaster board and final finish. The less material, and all the inside is fire protected with the plywood, and also that's the final finish. Next, please. And also, I'm now developing the plywood structure using LVL, LSL, making kind of woven structure. This is small daycare center in northern Japan with heavy snow. I just bended the LVL seam panel, but still this can be bended very easily by wind. So I made a wooden frame and connecting by a steel rod in order to create kind of truss structure to support stiffening each other. Next, please. And the roof is finished with a stainless steel and polycarbonate in order to invite the light inside. Next, please. Then the same client asked me to design the gymnasium for the hospital. And because this hospital is a 2-story structure, I didn't want to make a heavy building next to the 2-story building. So I put the main body of the gymnasium underground. Only the roof is above the ground. And this is another further development of the pre-bent LVL structure. For the longitudinal section, I put the arch of the LVL to follow this oval shape. So it's diagonal in order to follow all the section following this curvature. Perpendicular to that, the other arch was put vertically, parallelly, so that all the cut edge is horizontal. Then I put this top layer, top and bottom. There's a space in between, and I put small timber in order to create a truss. Next, please. So as you see, this prevent LVL is following the curvature, and this side it's the parallel, so that it's created the gap in between 2 layers, and this create a truss structure. Next, please. And there's a swimming pool. Then we get indirect light through the gymnasium into the swimming pool. Next, please. This is my latest project. This is New Pompidou Center in Metz. Metz is a city east side of France. This was international competition. This was the first time I won the competition. Idea was because this site is the other side of a train station. It's empty site, and it's a big site. I want to design the building as a gathering space. So first I asked my landscape architect to design the park, and I put the hut roof on top of the landscape in order to make the connection between the outside garden and which is float into the space. Instead of making a box which divide inside and outside, so that I just made a big roof, and underneath is totally can be connected with outside. This is again the glass sliding shutter. So in the fine day, all the shutter goes up, then inside and outside is connected. And this roof come from next, please. The idea comes from the woven. This is a Chinese bamboo hut, and the geometry is hexagon woven pattern, and all the floor plan and the shape of the roof is sorry, it's very difficult to see, but the roof of the shape is hexagon, and hexagon is actually the symbol of the France, which is the shape of the France, the shape of the France. So French people consider the hexagon as their symbol. So this is a facade which is made by glass shutter, and it's open totally to connect inside and outside. And there's 3 tubes, the gallery tubes, and the end of the tube is a big window framing the monument of the city. Although this is a little bit far away from the center of the city, But each window is framing important monument of the city. This is framing the cathedral. Second tube is framing the main train station, which was built by German when Metz was occupied by Germany. Next, please. One more. Yes. This is my temporary office in Paris. As you know, this is on top of Pompidou Center. This is 6th floor terrace. I asked the president as a joke, if they can lend me the terrace, I can build my own temporary the office. The president said, if you get the permission from Renzo Piano, I can build it. So I went to his office to get his permission, and he said, that's a great idea. So I was very lucky to get his permission. And the shape is the kind of the tunnel arch, like this glass tube. And next, please. Because I don't have money, I just brought my Japanese student, work with a French student to organize a workshop to build all the structure by student last summer. So but after I complete the museum, I have to. The museum asked me to leave the space they want to use as a gallery. So if you come to Paris, you are welcome to visit me. But I'm sorry, you have to buy ticket to see me. Really, because I became the part of the exhibition, so you have to buy ticket to see me. Next, please. This is a paper tube structure, very early period, 1980. It's a temporary structure for 3 months. But this time I didn't have a permission to use the paper tube as a structure element. So there is a square steel column to support the roof. So paper tube was just used as the secondary material as a wall receiving the wind pressure. And there is 330 tube. The diameter is the inch and 1 foot and 10 inch diameter. And next, please. And in between space was closed by the clear plastic in order to invite light. And there is the bigger diameter tube that is 4-foot diameter, and the inside is used as a toilet. Because the ceiling height is 8 meters, that is about 27 feet. You get very good sound effect. And, also, in case you finish with your toilet paper, you can tear off inside the wall. Next, please. This is the small library for my friend poet. This was built in 1991 as a first permanent paper tube structure without government permission. I built it without permission, and it's still there. It's good condition. This structure, the diameter is only 4 inch. And this post-tension structure, this the steel rod is inside the tube to put post-tension to connect the timber wood joint and the paper tube for the columns and the beams. Next, please. And this is the first permanent paper tube building with government permission. I designed my own weekend house in order to get this complicated government permission, and I got it. It was after 1 year. But I didn't manage to realize my weekend house. I was very lucky to get this small commission from a fashion designer, Issei Miyake, to use this permission for his small gallery as a first permanent paper tube structure. Next, please. It's just a simple structure with columns which create a beautiful shadow, and it's moved depending on time of the day, and also space in between the paper tube to invite nice linear light behind the wall. Next, please. And recently, I was able to build my own weekend house, but it was too late. I have no more weekend because I'm already traveling. Next, please. And this is the first paper arch, 1998. Each time I design the paper tube structure, this is totally different from previous structure. I have to test it, and I have to get the government special permission to build it. So this is just simple arch with a wooden joint connected with the lug board Next, please. This is a construction photo of Japanese pavilion for Hanover Expo in Germany, year 2000. The theme of Expo was environmental issue. So I was chosen by government to build a building out of recycled material. But also, I want to design the building. Usually, problem of Expo Pavilion is industrial. We create industrial waste because we make many temporary pavilion and it's dismantled after half year, and so we create a lot of waste. So I wanted to design the building out of recycled material, but also I wanted to recycle or use the material after I demolished the building. So my goal was not the completion of the building. My goal was when building was demolished. I didn't want the concrete foundation, so all the foundation is made of wooden box filled with sand instead of the concrete foundation, because concrete is very difficult material to recycle. And I was very lucky to get the consultant. I worked with Professor Fry Otto in order to develop this paper tube grid shell structure. And for the construction, this is a long tube. It's 20 meter. That is about 7 feet. That is the maximum length we can carry using the high autobahn. Then we put flat. The connection is just fabric tape, and we push up by scaffolding. And little by little, we rotate the scaffolding to shape the grid shell. And so this is very low tech. We didn't use a heavy the crane. But there's only one high-tech method was used. We put 10 antenna to measure change of the shape from satellite using the GPS system to measure the change of the shape. Next, please. And this is the foundation with the sand box, wooden box with sand. And this is the paper membrane. This is fire protected and waterproof according to the German regulation. Next, please. And because it's a paper, it's become a kind of the Isam Noguchi type of the light fixture in the evening. Next, please. This is the inside. And this is the fabric, the tape. As I said, during the erection, the paper tube changed the angle and is stiffening by itself, and also it's allow the paper tube rotate three-dimensionally during the erection. So this simple fabric tape allows such a complicated movement of the paper tube during the erection process. Next, please. This is the fabric tape, and I had to, actually I must say I had to make many compromises. Although we proved everything by testing and calculation according to German regulation, but this wooden arch, it used to be very thin arch in order to just triangulate paper tube grid shell. That's the idea, wonderful idea of Fry Otto. But the authority asked us to make the dimension of the timber 4 times bigger than it's necessary. So I must say this is no longer pure paper tube structure. This is a hybrid structure with paper tube and wooden arch. That was a big compromise I had to make. But the space, quality of space itself was really what I expected. And this is the end wall. This is also made of paper honeycomb. Next, please. In order to use paper honeycomb for the structure, I previously designed this small museum in Japan to get special government permission by testing using the paper honeycomb as a roof structure. Next, please. This is an arch in MoMA year 2000. Before MoMA start reconstruction, I was asked to cover the garden. So I covered the garden by paper tube structure. And I was very lucky because I didn't have to compromise at all. This is purely paper tube structure. I could realize because I didn't have to work with the mean authority in New York. Next, please. This is Rwanda, 1994. They have a terrible fight between Tutsi and Hutu, and over 2 million people became refugees. And I was really shocked to see photo right hand side because people are freezing with blanket. I thought most of African countries warm, but they have very heavy rainy season. And also they only provided the very, very poor plastic sheet from United Nations. That's why they are freezing during the rainy season. So I thought we have to improve the shelter, otherwise any medical care doesn't help them. Next, please. So I went to the head office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Geneva to propose my idea, improving shelter out of paper tube. I was very lucky to be hired as a consultant because they are having the environment problem. And they thought my proposal can help this problem. This is a typical refugee shelter. This is the UN plastic sheet, and the refugee have to cut the trees by themselves to make a frame to put the plastic sheet. And over 2 million people can cut trees. So this become this used to be the forest, but it's all the trees gone, and the refugee have to go much further to cut more trees. And after this become very serious deforestation, the United Nations provide them aluminum pipe. But aluminum is very expensive material in Africa. That's why refugees sold them out for money, and they cut trees again. That's why the aluminum pipe didn't work as an alternative material, so that they hired me to develop my idea of using paper tube as an alternative material. Next, please. And I was very lucky to get the support from one of the most famous European furniture company, Vitra. As you know, Vitra hired many famous architects. This is the furniture museum and the factory designed by Frank Gehry. Behind this factory, there is a seminar house designed by Tadao Ando. Right-hand side of this factory, there is a factory designed by Nicolas Grimshaw and Alvaro Caesar. Further right, there is a fire station designed by Zaha Hadid. So this company has such expensive collection of the architecture, and my tent is their cheapest collection. Left-hand side, this is a Bimba camp in Rwanda. Nowadays, already Rwanda refugees came back to home, and they are accepting refugees from Congo. And I went to there, next please, to make the 50 unit of tent as a monitoring stage. It's still testing stage because I have to teach them how to assemble them. I have to see whether this system is easy enough to be assembled by themselves. And also we have to check the durability, and also biggest problem is termite. So this is still monitoring stage. Next please. This is Kobe in Japan, 1995. After the earthquake, over 6,500 people were killed. And this town was all burned fire after the earthquake. And I went to there. I particularly went to a Catholic church. All the building is gone. I knew there's many Vietnamese refugees in this church. I thought that those kind of minority people were having harder time after disaster. Then I proposed to the priest to rebuild the church out of paper, but they accepted. He accepted if I can build my own money and with all voluntary people. So I started to do the fundraising as well as designing the church. Next, please. Then in the meantime, I got known more about problem of Vietnamese refugees in Kobe. They are living in the park like this in the plastic sheet. And the rainy days, all the floor get wet, and in shiny day, inside it get so hot they cannot stay inside. Also, the neighbor people try to kick them out because they are afraid this park is becoming like a slum. But they couldn't move into the government house because all the government house was built outside of the city. And these people had the only job in particular area of the city working in the particular factory. So if they move out from city, they're going to lose their job. That's why they had to keep living in this park. So I thought if I design the nicer the temporary shelter, they can be accepted by neighbor to keep living here. So I started building the house using paper tube 4-inch diameter, and the foundation is made of plastic beer container. In Japan, there are two major beer companies called Kirin and Asahi. I particularly asked the Kirin company to donate plastic beer container, because the other company makes a plastic beer container red, which doesn't go with the color of the paper tube. Next, please. I built all with a student during summer, about 30 units for the Vietnamese refugees. This is the interior. Next, please. And this is in Turkey, 1999. Also, they have terrible earthquake. First, I went to there with I brought plastic sheet because always plastic sheet was useful use. This is the military tent. This is too old and they are no longer waterproof. So that's why plastic sheet was usefully used to cover them. And I asked because that time in Japan we had the so-called bubble period is gone, so that it was very difficult to money donated. So what I did was asking the Japanese contractor to donate their plastic sheet with their company name and logo. And it's very important to have their name printed, because if CNN or some newspaper comes and their name of a company could be seen in all over the world. And even the donating money is very important, but you don't know how your money is used during a disaster. But even if you just donate poor plastic sheet, and if you see your company name on the newspaper or TV, you must be very happy. Then you continue supporting us. That's why this kind of public relation is very important during disaster time. Then I was asked by local NGO to build the Kobe type of the shelter, temporary shelter, because they are having very cold winter with snow. Next, please. And then I work with local architect to to adapt Kobe type into the context of the Turkey. And it has to be insulated. So this is my favorite photo. Children helped us to put waste paper inside of the paper tube to make wall more insulated. And all the paper tube and the plastic beer container was donated free from local manufacturer. Next, please. And this is India, 2001. And I was asked to come over to build temporary houses. And it was very easy to find the paper tube locally, because there are many textile company make their own paper tube to put carpet fabric. But I couldn't find the plastic beer container because nobody drink beer there. And my local architect suggested me to use a Coca-Cola plastic case, but I thought that is out of context. So I just used the rubber. I made the mud floor, and traditional mud floor, and this is the woven cane mat, 2 layers with very thin plastic. Next, please, as a roof. So it's kind of translucent. And some of them are used as a school, and some of them are used as a house. So this is a traditional mud floor. Next, please. And this is a small paper house inside of the gymnasium. This was end of last year. Northern Japan city called Niigata got a terrible earthquake, and all the village people were evacuated in the gymnasium. And it's same as after the hurricane, they evacuated, but there is no privacy, and they are mentally tired. And also the gymnasium ceiling height is so high, so it's very difficult to heat up. So I built with my student the small paper house with a paper honeycomb in order to keep privacy and keep them warm. Next, please. Next, please. And this is my latest project in Sri Lanka after tsunami. I was asked to come over to rebuild the small fisherman's village, Islamic fisherman's village. So I'm rebuilding the 80 houses. This is earth brick, but I limited the area to make by the brick in order to use the local labor. This brick is made of the earth, but its shape is like a logo block. We can stack very easily by local labor. And these furniture are prefabricated in the factory, made of the rubber trees. Because in Sri Lanka, they have big tile industries. They make the rubber trees. After they take the rubber, they cut, and they are usually used for something like the craftsman, like some craft. So I made this furnitures all made of very inexpensive rubber timber. So because the people lost, not only lost their house, but also they lost their furnitures. So even if they move into new house, they don't have any storage. So all the walls, doors, the partition is made of the closet, so that they can have all the necessary storage already built in. Next, please. This is the last project. This is a church in Kobe, 1995. Everything was made by a student. And we spent 5 weeks to complete this church. Next, please. This is the last picture. So this is the first time they are having morning service inside, underneath of the roof. And here's the priest. And priest told me he doesn't want to have any symbol or any icon of a Catholic church because he wanted to use this space as a community space, invite the people not depending on the religion. But I wanted to show some of my experience visiting the wonderful church all over the world. So only thing what I did is putting the paper chip of the oval shape. This comes from one of my favorite church in Rome, designed by Bernini, in order to create the corridor space with main space. This church was there until 4 months ago. And the church decided to rebuild all the buildings. And this church was donated to Taiwan because they also had a terrible earthquake. And now this is under process of rebuilding in Taiwan. And as I said at the beginning, we have been working for privileged people, and we love to make a monument. I'm not saying I'm an exception, but I was very happy that when I built this church was meant to be temporary, but actually this became permanent because this became the symbol of the city. People loves it. So that I like to keep building the monument for the people. Thank you very much. Some question? Yes, please. I think it can be permanent material. Do you know how long the concrete lasts? Even the concrete building can be easily destroyed by earthquake, but the paper tube building cannot be destroyed because it's such a lightweight. So the lifespan of the building has nothing to do with the strength of the material. Even concrete building can be destroyed by earthquake. Also, if it was built by the developer, they sold them out and they rebuilt. So this can be temporary. But if you love the building, even paper building can be last forever. Yes.
Are there any mold issues?
Pardon me?
Are there any mold?
Mold?
Mold.
No. You don't need a mold. This is a sonotube. You know that this is a...
I mean, organic.
Huh?
Organic mold.
Mold?
Mold growth, like organic mold, fungus.
Organic mold?
Like, we have such problems in some other areas of the United States, even if wet. Yeah.
It's waterproof. Perfect.
It's all waterproof.
Yes. It's like a sono... Have you seen sonotube?
Yeah.
Sonotube is the concrete form when you make a concrete column, a round column. So you put wet concrete, so it has to be waterproof inside, outside. So this is standard tube made by Sonoco, and it's available everywhere in the world. Thank you. Yes.
How you
Why not other architects? But then you have to ask other architects. There are so many people sending me email to help. So whenever I go, I